Hi everyone, and welcome to this violin lesson on how to play the G natural minor scale, and this is in preparation for starting to learn how to play our new piece, Blinding Lights. So it's really important that we start off with this video so that we are familiar with the sort of hand frame, the hand shape that we will need to be able to play some of the notes in the slightly more challenging music of Blinding Lights. So on the screen in front of you, you can see the scale written out. Now we should be fairly used to what scales are by now. Remember, they're just a series of notes going up in step all the way and then back down. Because we know this is a G natural minor scale, we know it starts on G and therefore it goes up step by step until it gets to the top G before it returns back down. But because it's a minor scale, there are a couple of things that are there to catch us out a little bit that we need to be aware of before we even start. So if I get my spotlight ready, I'll show you the very first thing we need to look at. So at the start of any piece of music, we know that we have a key signature as well as a time signature. Now the key signature, quite often, so far it might not have had anything there at all, and that just tells us that there are no sharps and no flats. But in this case, there are two flat signs. Those sort of lowercase b's tell us that there are two notes in this scale that are always going to be a flat. And in this case, they are a B flat, because the sort of circle part of the sign is crossing where the B would be, and an E flat because it's crossing where an E would normally sit. So that tells us that in this scale, any B becomes a B flat and any E becomes an E flat. And the sort of shorthand way we say that is, instead of saying B flat while we're playing, which can take a bit too much time, we can say Bess instead of B. And instead of saying E flat, we can say S instead of E. So as would normally happen in a scale, it starts on G, A is normal, but then we have a B flat or Bess, and in that case it means we need to push our first finger right back to achieve that note. And then when we get as far as the E, instead of going onto the open E string, because it's an E flat or an S, we need to make sure that we are achieving that with our fourth finger. All right? So let me just play you the scale going up so you can see on my violin what it will look like. So we start as normal on our third finger on our D string, and we can find that by just using our normal counting up method until we find the note. So we have a G, open A, but then we have to put our first finger all the way back. Normally, it would be about there for a normal B, but for a B flat, we need to pull it back as far as the top nut of the instrument. So open, third finger on the D string, open A, first finger back or low, which then means we would have to stretch our second finger and stretch our third finger. And now in E flat, our little finger needs to be right next door. And then we don't play an open E, we play our first finger again all the way back, and then our second finger. So lots of things to consider here and lots of things that could potentially go wrong. So let's start off by trying this together. I've already written the fingering in there for you. I've also put an exclamation mark over the two notes that we need to be careful about, so the B flat and the E flat. So let's just try straight away playing this, saying the numbers as we play it. So starting off with three fingers on our D string, just find your first note. And let's give this a go together. Ready? 1, 2, 3, 4. 3, O. Now first finger back. Stretch, 2. Stretch, 3. Close, 4. Close, 1. Stretch, 2. Good, well done. And of course, with all of the strings, the A string and the E string, our first finger is always going to be back. It's going to be low instead of being in the normal place. Let's try that one more time. Find your first note. 1, 2, 3, 4. 3. Open A. First finger low. Stretch for 2. Stretch for 3. Fourth finger close. Now first finger low. Stretch for 2. Excellent. And of course, when we come back down, I haven't written the numbers there because I think we can remember them, hopefully. So on the way back down, it's just the same but in reverse. So this time, let's try it again. I'll still give out these tips as we go, but we're going to carry on this time and go on to the second line. So starting from the beginning, but carrying on to the end. Here we go. Find your first note. 1, 2, 3, 4. 3. Open A. First finger low, stretch for 2, stretch for 3, fourth finger close, first finger low, stretch for 2, back down to 1, now fourth finger, third finger close, second, first finger low, open A, 3 fingers on the D string. Very good. So the tricky thing on the way back down really happens around here, when we have to go from our first finger on the E string to all 4 fingers on the A string. And it really is just a case of getting used to what it should sound like. If you can imagine, if you kind of get familiar with the sound of the scale and you imagine you're sort of singing it along in your head, then it will help you to internalise the sounds so that you know what to expect. What I would do is I'd spend a couple of minutes just going from first finger on the E string to fourth finger on the A string, and just do that a few times. Then take your hand away, shake it, put it back and try it again. And then try playing the scale again, okay? So now that we've played it at quite a steady tempo, I want us to see if we can try it in crotchets instead of minims. So we're going to go ta, 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 ta. Okay, and we're going to try and play it straight through all the way. I'll still give some hints, but the main things, as you know, to look out for are making sure your first finger is all the way back. Okay, so find your first note. The notes are exactly the same, it's just a little bit faster. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Low, close, low, back down, 4, low. Good job, well done. And then if you're ready, if you're up for the challenge, the next stage is to do it even faster as quavers. So we're just doubling the speed each time, so this time it'll be... Okay, the things that are tricky remain the same no matter what the speed is. It's always going to be tricky going from the F to the E flat. So those are the things to practice. As I've mentioned in previous scale videos, if you're really struggling, a good technique is to try it in rhythms. So we're going to do that now before we practice it at the normal speed. So we should be going like this, but we're going to do this. Long, short, long, short, long, short, long. Join me trying it with that rhythm, please. Find your first note. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Very good. And then we reverse it. So this time we're going to go short, long, short, long, short, long. That rhythm. Okay, so find your first note. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Good. Practice it in those rhythms until it feels really familiar, and then the idea is that when we go to doing it at the faster tempo, we've already kind of done the hard work of practicing going quickly between the different notes, so it should feel a bit easier. So we're now going to try at this speed. So let's try it. Find your first note for me. And here we go. Remember, your first finger is always going to be back. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. And into rest position. Good. So the reason it's really important to be familiar with this scale before you even attempt the first lesson of blinding lights is because when you're familiar with the patterns in this scale, you're in the habit of having your first finger far back, of using that fourth finger for the E flat, and your hand kind of knows, you've got your muscle memory there that kind of knows where it should be to achieve these different notes. And because blinding lights is in the same key, it still has B flats and E flats, it'll just make your job a lot easier when it comes around to applying this to the music. So have a go at this scale, and when you feel that you've conquered it, then move on to the next lesson and we will start looking at the violin parts for blinding lights. Good luck and happy practicing!